Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex. Lord, yesterday at spring training, we got our first glimpse of AJ Smith-Shawver, and that one went a lot better than Ian Anderson. Now, obviously, we're only talking about 2 inning sample sizes here, so no. But I was impressed by what I saw. I mean, he was humming it in the mid to high 90s consistently with his fastball. Showed a much improved slider that I think is getting better and better, and that changeup is absolutely filthy. And we've talked a little bit about it being sink or swim for Ian Anderson, but AJ Smith-Shawver is not far behind. He's just 22 years old, which makes it kind of a weird situation because you have this developing pitcher that's so young, that got started late in high school, was a quarterback, multi-sport athlete, two-way player coming out of college. Wasn't this just like, oh, I'm a pitcher, like you see a lot of guys coming out of high school? But he only has one option left. So it's like, when do you use that option? Now, at some point, they're going to use it this year. Like he's just, the depth is so thin. He's too good. It's time to give him a leash. But this season, in a lot of ways, is also sink or swim for AJ Smith-Shawver.
He's got a weird dynamic around him, or at least like how Braves fans talk about him is like, is this guy than a lot of other systems? People are talking about this guy on the cusp. This is the next guy. But he's got like some sort of like, fatigue factor in his name when it comes to Braves fans, where we're like maybe not considering him ever being that staple of the rotation, maybe because we thought it last year. And then when he rocketed through the system the year before, people were like, okay, he's here to stay. And then last year was like, this is the year, here to stay. And it's kind of like, I guess we're tired of that conversation. I don't know what it is, but this is a guy, in terms of the stuff, has everything you really want. Got to work on the control, obviously, which is like every guy ever who wants to be a starting pitcher in this league. Got everything you want to be a staple of Atlanta's rotation. And yet I find myself talking about other guys somehow, whether it's, further down the prospect list or otherwise. It's a weird dynamic with him.
It's prospect fatigue 101. I mean, the guy has been kind of on the cusp. We thought he was going to when he was coming up. And then it's also, you have all these guys like Spencer Schwellenbach and Spencer Strider just coming up and all of a sudden becoming stars, and guys that you're like frontline arms. So it's like that. With
the Braves, it's kind of like he gets here, he's a star, he never goes back.
That doesn't usually happen with guys with the Braves. I mean, it does, though, but we forget about him. And it kind of reminds me where, maybe Kyle Wright was at. That was a guy who it clicked a little bit at times, and then it didn't click at times, and he bounced up between AAA and the majors, and he struggled, and he had injury stuff. AJ Smith-Shawver hasn't had injury stuff, but there was all this bouncing around, and people were like, but every time you saw Kyle Wright pitch, you're like, damn, man, if he can just put it all together. And then he put it all together. Unfortunately, got that serious shoulder injury, and it only lasted for 1 year in Atlanta. But when he put it all together, that was spectacular. I mean, he was a top 10 in the Cy Young, a 20-game winner. Like, it kind of reminds you that we always say it, but this progression is never linear. It's been linear for a lot of guys, but that is not normal. The Braves have just had some really, really good luck. They've developed these guys really well, talking about Strider and Schwellenbach, and they've been immediate impact players from the moment they stepped on a major league mound. That doesn't happen. Those are the outliers. That is not the norm. But it's interesting. I think this is the year, though. I think we finally see him give him a leash, because once he's up, they're going to have to give him, 5, 10, 15 starts and say, hey, do we have a guy here? Because you're right. There is prospect fatigue. And when you only have one option left, we've got to figure out what AJ Smith-Shawver can provide for this team, whether that starts on opening day, which if he keeps looking like he did in his first start, very well could happen, or whether it starts in May, June, July, when an injury arises or you need a sixth starter. It's going to happen at some point this season. I'm confident in that.
Yeah, if trends continue, you could probably pencil them in. As long as there's not,
except for my bold prediction, which we're going to do later.
Yeah, if there's not a bold prediction coming to fruition, if trends continue, I mean, obviously, again, you said it, 2 innings, 1 start for each of these guys, Ian Anderson, AJ Smith-Shawver. You can't make any, conclusions from this. But you couldn't have started off worse if you're Ian Anderson, and you couldn't have started off better if you're AJ Smith-Shawver. Obviously, they're going to give, even if Ian Anderson, let's just do it a scale of 1 to 10. AJ Smith-Shawver's at 10, and Ian Anderson's at 8 coming out of spring training. They're probably going to give the nod to Ian Anderson, even if AJ Smith-Shawver is better at that point because he's out of options. And you're just going to give him more runway to kind of figure it out and see if he can recapture some of that 2021 magic.
If Ian Anderson is a 5, he's going to get on. If Ian Anderson shows any glimpse at any point in spring training in a start, like it is really this simple that he can be possibly be a major league pitcher, they are going to give him that shot because he is out of options. Like it could be a 4 and a 10. Like it is that big of a gap. Now, right now, I think you're more right that Ian Anderson's at a 1. If I'm talking about what he looks like and what I've seen, and it's not just this year, it's what I've seen, over the last 3 years. And then you throw Tommy John in the middle of that. Like he has not looked like a major league pitcher since 2022. And he has to look at some point in spring training like a major league pitcher.
I want to this is completely random. Guys like Chris Sale and Spencer Strider and Max Fried, the guys that are your frontline guys, starting pitchers and everything, they come into spring training and they're a couple ticks slower than they usually are because they're ramping up. They're just doing these sorts of things. But, you would think a guy like Ian Anderson, who knows this is his last job. This is his last shot, at least with the Atlanta Braves. And while you do want to not, do your own program, you want to, be with the team and do everything that they're advising you to do. Spencer Schwellenbach came in and he is already right where he's at. Don't you think that it might be smart for Ian Anderson to have been ramped up prior to coming to Northport?
See, I don't think
is that crazy?
I don't think Spencer Schwellenbach's ramped up, and that's part of the reason why I was talking about yesterday. Another reason to be excited. Like I think there's another mile. I think there's another giddy up in his horse. Like I think he's just getting stronger as a guy who hasn't pitched that many innings. I don't think you should. Because listen, it isn't about where you're here right now. It's about the Braves are going to judge him off where he's at the end of this road. It's going to be 100% judged off that. If they think he has an inkling of a chance of being a major league starter at the end of spring training, they will give him a shot, a few starts. And if he doesn't go out there and get roughed up, he'll earn a start on a start-by-start basis. That's what I expect with Ian Anderson. But going back to that prospect fatigue on AJ Smith-Shawver, it's kind of weird how it exists, because he hasn't had the sustained success of Strider and Schwellenbach. But if you go look at like his major league numbers, and I did something on the site, go check it out, Sports Talk ATL. Like the guy has a 3.54 ERA in the majors over 29.2. Like
I don't think I would guess under 4.
Like everyone just thinks that they remember the Padres game because that's
beat.
but going on the road to start game 1 of a postseason series when you haven't thrown a major league inning since May, like that's just a ridiculous ask. To take anything away from that start is just foolish. Like a lot of really good pitchers would have gotten roughed up against that Padres lineup on the road in game 1 of a playoff series when you just traveled across the country and didn't have a day off. A lot of really good pitchers. I mean, hell, Max Fried got roughed up the next game for 5 runs, and he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. So to take anything away from that, and I know that's our last memory of him, is stupid. But like you look at the body of work in the majors, like 29. I know it's only 29 innings, but it's not terrible. 1.1 WHIP, 121 ERA plus, 21% above league average. Like those are his numbers at the major league level. And like you don't even have to be that good to be a 5th starter. If he was that as a 5th starter, he's the best 5th starter in baseball.
It is crazy that just pretty much nobody like that. It is such a weird phenomenon. That's what it is, really, that everybody's just kind of already turned the page on him, so to speak. And obviously that's not completely true. I am being a little bit over dramatic, but it does feel like that to a certain extent, where it's like the world is falling. The Braves had nobody that can fill that 5th spot. It's Ian Anderson or death, and you said, I mean, he's got the stuff and he's still young. And like Schwellenbach, he doesn't have a ton of experience up to this point, like other 22-year-olds or 21-year-olds, however old he is.
The guy is 22 years old and 99 days. He will be 22 this entire baseball season. He has got so much baseball ahead of him. Giving up on him, especially when he's got the tools and the potential and the ceiling, is stupid. The only reason we're talking about it this way is I believe you're right. I even catch myself. You said you catch yourself kind of like looking past AJ Smith-Shawver and the swing of things, but it's also that weird option thing that I talked about at the beginning. It's like you only have one option left. Like, what if you do not perform well? Like, well enough to help us compete for a division title throughout this season. Like, what is next for AJ Smith-Shawver? And I think we're getting to the end of the runway much sooner than anybody could anticipate.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about like this with 24-year-olds.
Most 24-year-olds aren't even in the majors.
Correct.
This guy is on his last option.
Correct.
Like, so it's like, it's a weird situation because of that. It's like, we need you to show us something because we don't,
which is abnormal.
Yeah, we don't want to let go of you. Right. So like, it is a very, very weird situation with AJ Smith-Shawver. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk some bold predictions for the 2025 season.